You know, everything that's popular eventually gets a few spin-offs. I mean, you got Mario, Zelda, Kirby, Religion, and for a short while in the mid-2000s, Metroid was one of those popular things. Which meant it got a few spin-offs of its own. But like, come on, Metroid's a series that doesn't seem like it could do the whole spin-off thing. I mean, Mario feels right at home with something like a golf club, but Samus? I mean, I guess you could like stick it up there or something. So how exactly do you make a spin-off of this? I don't fucking know. Okay, so first off, what even is a spin-off? Well, if you bust out your boy Webster, a spin-off is something that is imitative or derivative of an earlier work, product, or establishment. Alright, so I guess the earlier work, product, or establishment in this case would be the mainline Metroid series. You know, 2D adventure games that have you searching a vast world for items that'll help you progress through said world. Alright, cool. So if we take a look at the old timeline here, we'll see the first game that spun off from this original concept was Metroid Prime. Yeah, this feels super weird to say, but the entire Metroid Prime series is technically the spin-off. It just doesn't feel right to call it a spin-off though, because nowadays Metroid Prime is kind of viewed as the mainline series. It's what a majority of people think of when they hear the phrase Metroid game, but it's technically a spin-off. I mean, yeah, the core of Metroid is still there, you're still exploring a vast world, collecting upgrades, but everything else is spun off from that original concept. It's 3D, it's a first-person shooter, it's more linear, the pacing is slower, and the story, while still canon, is pretty disconnected from the mainline Metroid plot. So I guess you could argue it's in this weird spin-off gray area or something. Regardless though, the Prime series would eventually completely overshadow the mainline entries, which is surprising in hindsight considering how much hatred and worry Prime was met with prior to its release. But upon release, this little Metroid spin-off not only became the killer app for the GameCube, but it also completely reinvigorated the entire Metroid franchise after a long 8-year hiatus. This started a bit of a Metroid renaissance in which a ton of new games were released. The first of which to be shown off was a multiplayer focused spin-off called Metroid Prime Hunters. Now, I feel like this game in particular speaks volumes to the heights Metroid soared to in the early 2000s, because in 2004, for the release of their new handheld, the Nintendo DS, it wasn't Mario in the spotlight, but instead it was Samus, being proudly featured on every single Nintendo DS box. Metroid Prime Hunters demo included. Yeah, a demo for a game that was still 2 years out got top billing. Even though the DS launched alongside a remake of one of the most iconic games of all time, Nintendo still chose Metroid to promote the launch of their next big handheld.
If it gets in your way, touch it and blast it. Metroid Prime Hunters, coming soon for Nintendo DS.
The demo honestly isn't anything special though, it's just a couple of training missions and a pretty bare bones multiplayer mode. But regardless, it's still a fairly impressive showcase for the DS, with it using all of the system's unique features, like 3D visuals, dual screens, wireless connectivity, the touchscreen, arthritis. Yeah, this game is a bitch to control. Like, it has all these different control schemes, but they all kinda suck. There's no lock-on like in the mainline Prime games. Instead, you freely aim with the touchscreen, which allows you to aim more precisely, but it comes at the cost of both your fucking hands. 2 years and 1 delay later, the full game would finally release, and oh boy is it a bit of a mixed bag. For starters, the campaign is, how do I put this? It's fucking lame. It's painfully obvious it was just an afterthought. Like, the campaign is literally just the multiplayer maps glued together like some kindergarten art project. It's at least got these pretty impressive looking cutscenes though, which apparently the development team got into some shit for after it was discovered they were blowing millions of dollars on these things. Oops. So yeah, the campaign isn't really worth your time, but the multiplayer... Okay, so like, yeah, it's just Quake on the DS, but like, come on. That's really fucking cool. You gotta keep in mind the time this was released, because there really wasn't anything else quite like this on a handheld back then. It's not just some half-assed attempt at multiplayer either. It's fully featured, with a ton of different modes, over 25 different maps, unique weapons, voice chat, and 7 unique playable characters. Oh yeah, these guys. Some of these Ben 10-ass rejects are bounty hunters just like Samus, and they're all fully playable in the multiplayer mode. They also kinda hunt you down in the single player, but trust me, it's not as cool as it sounds. They add quite a bit to the multiplayer though, like they each have a unique morph ball form and a special ability only they can use when carrying a specific weapon. But besides that, they don't really offer much else. It's a huge shame too, because they're all super cool characters. But you wouldn't know it unless you whipped out the goddamn instruction manual. Yeah, even though they're featured pretty heavily in the single player, they aren't given any backstory whatsoever in game. But in the manual and official website, they were given these really cool character bios. Now, like I said, prior to its release, Metroid Prime Hunters actually got delayed by a year. This was to give them enough time to incorporate the online multiplayer. So to tide us over until then, another Metroid Prime spin-off was released on the DS in the form of Metroid Prime Pinball. Alright, now listen, my pinball career started and ended with my boy Space Cadet, so I guess you could say I'm not the biggest, pinball connoisseur. So yeah, I wasn't too excited to try this one. I mean, what, you made the morph ball, the pinball? Yeah, that's cute, I guess, but it's still just a pinball game with a Metroid skin, right? Right? Well, I mean, yeah, but it's still really fucking good. They absolutely nailed the feeling of the Prime series. Everything from the tables, the music, the sound effects, it's all just unmistakably Metroid Prime. It also has this kind of adventure game feel to it, with objectives to complete, enemies to fight, boss battles, and even some upgrades to get. It's even structured a bit like the first Prime game, with you going to each location to collect the 12 Chozo artifacts. Like, they really went above and beyond here to make this feel like more than just another pinball game. The cherry on top of all of this, though, has got to be the Rumble Pack. Ooh. Packaged with each copy of the game was the DS Rumble Pack. It's a GBA cartridge that you slap in your DS to give it rumble. Ooh. If you're playing Metroid Prime Pinball, you need to play it with the Rumble Pack. There's definitely a reason it was bundled with this game. It just makes the entire experience, and I hate using this goddamn buzzword, more immersive. I find most games that use the DS's Rumble Pack only did so in very subtle ways, almost like they were scared to even use it. Now, let's fast forward a bit. So after the release of Prime 3 in 2007, things were looking better than ever for Metroid. 8 Metroid games have been released within the span of just 5 years, and for the first time, it was starting to feel like Metroid had finally made it. It had become one of Nintendo's top franchises, right up there with the other big hitters like Zelda and even Mario. But then it all came crashing down.
Remember me?
This one fucking game took all of the progress the series had made up to that point and completely crushed it. Without getting too much into it, Metroid Other M was a complete flop, which seemingly put the series into video game purgatory. We wouldn't see another proper Metroid game for 7 whole years, 11 if you don't count the remake. But thankfully it wasn't complete radio silence, so we did get a few nods and spin-offs to the franchise in that time. Well, more like a nod and a fuck you, but hey, it's something. So the nod the series got was Metroid Blast, and now that I know we're supposed to be talking about Metroid spin-offs here, and this one is more of a mini game, I guess, but whatever, I'm still including it. Metroid Blast was one of the 12 attractions in Nintendo Land, which was a Wii U launch title used to showcase different ways the Wii U's controller, the gamepad, could be used. You know, kinda similar to what Wii Sports did with the Wii Remote. However, Metroid Blast kinda highlights one of the biggest flaws with the Wii U. That being, what's the fucking point? Now, Metroid Blast itself is honestly a lot of fun. It's a multiplayer-focused third-person shooter where up to 5 players work together to complete certain objectives. These range from things like defeating waves of enemies, collecting tokens, or battling a boss. 4 players use Wii remotes and play on the ground, while the player with the gamepad uses Samus's gunship to provide support from the air. It's honestly a really cool concept that encourages everyone to work together. However, like I said, similar to a lot of other Wii U games, it has the problem of, what's the fucking point? Nothing in this game feels like it needed the gamepad, which for a game that's supposed to show off what makes this fancy new controller so special is pretty bad. All of this could have easily been done with a simple split screen setup. Actually, I feel like it would have worked better with a split screen, since that way you wouldn't have to look up from the gamepad every 5 seconds just to see where your teammates are. Now, the other games in Nintendo Land do a much better job of providing experiences that are only possible with the gamepad. But the thing is, those are all mostly just gimmicky little multiplayer games. Metroid Blast, on the other hand, was meant to be the big showcase for the hardcore gamers, used to show off how the gamepad could benefit more hardcore titles. But in the end, it just kinda confirmed everyone's assumption that the Wii U gamepad was nothing more than a pointless gimmick. So that was the nod the series got, so how about that fuck you? Yeah, fuck you too! Oh boy, this fucking game. This might just be one of the most tone-deaf and controversial releases Nintendo has ever put out. So let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you had this friend, right? Now this friend meant a lot to you. You grew up together, made all these amazing memories together, but then this friend finishes his 3rd year in college or whatever and just kind of disappears from your life. You'd be pretty bummed, right? I mean, you spent all those years together and they just vanish? But then, almost 10 years later, on the 30th anniversary of your friendship of all things, you get a knock at your door. Could it really be them?
Remember me?
Who the fuck? E3 2015, the year of puppets, Star Fox, and riots. But this year also saw the return of the Nintendo World Championships. During the competition, contestants competed in a variety of different games, such as Splatoon, Balloon Fight, and a game that had just been announced at the event,
Blast Ball!
Nobody could really make heads or tails of this thing. Like, was it a new IP? Was it a game made specifically for the event? Well, we get our answer at Nintendo's E3 digital event the next day, where Blast Ball was revealed to be a part of a new Metroid Prime spin-off called Metroid Prime Federation Force. This was the first Prime game to be released in almost 10 years, was coming out during Metroid's 30th anniversary, and on the surface, didn't seem to have anything to do with Metroid at all. Like, Samus, the main character of the franchise, was seemingly nowhere to be found. Fans weren't too happy. The trailers got an insane amount of dislikes, there were petitions to get the game straight up cancelled. It got so bad that Nintendo went out of their way to address all the negativity in a 2016 Nintendo Direct. Not that it helped at all. But now that the dust has settled, and with Metroid being in a much better place now, I'm curious, was it actually that bad? I mean, no, but it's not great either. Okay, so first off, during Nintendo's attempt to save this game, they kept repeating that they felt it absolutely belonged in the Metroid universe. And after playing it myself, no, it fucking doesn't. I'm sorry, but it just feels like the most generic futuristic first-person shooter ever. At no point while playing did I ever feel like, wow, I'm playing a new Metroid Prime game. I was only ever reminded it was a Metroid game when things like the Galactic Federation, Samus Aran, or Space Pirates were brought up. But you could literally swap out those words in the story for anything and absolutely nothing would change. This really does feel like they had this completely new IP and slapped the Metroid branding on it to help it sell. There's absolutely no Metroid elements whatsoever here. Stages are linear, so there's little to no exploration, no upgrades to find, just these stupid first-person shooter type perks, and the atmosphere is completely off. Like, why did they go with this chibi-ass art style? The controls are honestly the only thing that feels even remotely Metroidy about this game. And that's because they're ripped straight from the GameCube Prime titles. But GameCube Metroid Prime controls on a tiny ass handheld? I mean, I can think of worse ways to kill your hands. It's also just boring. Like, all you're doing is defeating enemies, solving extremely basic puzzles, and defeating bosses. It didn't matter if I was playing with friends or alone, the game just gets super old super fast. But hey, at least we got Blast Ball though. But I mean, it's literally just watered down Rocket League, so like, might as well just play Rocket League. Metroid Prime Federation Force didn't just fail at being a Metroid game, but it also failed at being a game in general. It's just not fun to play, which is a shame because there's quite a bit of potential here. A co-op focused Metroid Prime could be a lot of fun. Maybe it could take a page out of Four Swords' book where you have to share the upgrades you find. Like you have someone on Morph Ball duty and another on Wave Beam duty. It could make for a really interesting concept for a co-op adventure game. Or just give us Blast Ball 2, I don't give a fuck.